Right, friends, welcome back to Face Facts Friday on Colorful Story. I am here to go over the Reconstruction era with you because here we are once again in history going through another Reconstruction era. So let me break down what that means for us as Black people. So the Reconstruction era occurred from somewhere around 1861, 1863, or 1865. There has been several dates used up until 1877. So it started with the beginning of the emancipation of enslaved Africans, and it ended with the Rutherford B. Hayes presidency, where he exchanged the presidency for Southern votes and to allow them to target newly free Black people, which resulted in over 300 deaths of free Black people because of white terror. So now that we know when it was, we need to figure out what it was. It was a twofold era. So the first part would be to join the North and the South, making it one union. The second part was to free enslaved Africans because it would benefit the union. Really didn't have to do with equal rights. Yeah, I know. Everybody likes to think of the Republican Party as the party of Lincoln who freed the slaves. And I just want y'all to know that that was a different Republican Party. It basically is what the Southern Democrats were, but flipped. And also Lincoln didn't want Black people to have rights equal to white people. He actually referred to freed Black people as the N-word on a regular basis. So yeah, there's that. Also, he didn't start changing his mind until he befriended Frederick Douglass, who got him together, but then later on was murdered because he all of a sudden felt like Black people deserved the right to vote and to be considered human. Now, after the assassination of Lincoln, I just want y'all to know this was the beginning of many violent acts of the resistance to free Black people. Andrew Johnson was then the president. He comes in and he is a former poor white man from the South who was here to advocate for more poor whites. Now, like most people then, they could have been anti-slavery, but they were not anti-slave. Even those in the North believed that Black people should not be equal to white people. Now, Andrew Johnson's racism and hatred towards Black people went so deep. He actually implemented Black codes, which were basically slave codes, but for free Black people, that made it seem like you literally could not do anything. The KKK comes into play because they become these patty rollers or police type people, and they enforce these Black codes upon Black people. And back then, if you were a free Black person, they could incarcerate you for being unemployed if you were standing around. They're going to ask why you weren't at work, what you were supposed to be doing, sound familiar? And then they would also take your children from you and then use your children as profit. That's because they used to deem you to be unfit as a parent. Andrew Johnson took it a little bit further because then he started forgiving former slave owners and giving them political positions. So in comes these new Jim Crow policies that are further enforced to disenfranchise Black people. So, and what do you do when you give a bunch of racists a bunch of policies, policy making power? They create racist policies. Now, Black people were not as dumb as white plantation owners used to think they were. They knew that if they wanted real power, they had to get politically involved. So they began to run for office. We ended up having Black congressmen, and the Republican Party was the party of Black people. Of course, things flipped. They become even more racist, blah, blah, blah. Now, with this comes the first Black senator and the first House of Representatives. Just so you know, 4 million enslaved Africans were freed. At the beginning of 1867, 4% were only registered to vote, but at the end it was 80%. So they knew that Black voting power was powerful even right after they had been freed. Ulysses S. Grant took advantage of this and used the Black vote to win. Now let's get back to some of these white Southern politicians who just got power after enslaving Africans and then lost all their money. They were given reparations because, you know, it was gone. All their free labor was gone, and cotton was still booming. So what they ended up doing was having enslaved Africans enter into these labor contracts to where it was basically pennies on a dollar, which is why our government still profits off the poor. Now, I want to take it back a little bit because there was 850,000 acres of land that was won in the Confederacy. This land was supposed to go to enslaved Africans, to the point where Andrew Johnson had assigned General Howard to go out and distribute the land with the Freedoms Bureau, which was a really huge advocate for enslaved Africans at the time. Now, while all this was happening, Black people were getting their land. They saw that Black people were making a come up, but poor whites were suffering now. So Andrew Johnson was like, well, wait, hold up, pump your brakes. We're not about this equality stuff. So he ended up telling General Howard to go back and take the land from them. Only those who were able to have paid for their land were able to keep their land. So the majority of them lost everything. Y'all, even with all of this suppression, Black people were still trying to win. So what ended up happening after they gained their freedom, they not only registered to vote, they started investing into institutions with the help of the Freedoms Bureau by getting schools started, churches started. They started Howard University. They became educated at Harvard. It's so many things that we did despite all of these obstacles. And Frederick Douglass was a huge voice in this movement. Like, I cannot explain to you how much, like, we know about Frederick Douglass and how big he is, but no, we don't know how big he was in this era. So y'all, Black people were doing big things real big and real fast. So these racist policymakers that were former slave owners decided to start passing policies that negatively impacted Black people. So here you begin to see voter suppression really take form. You begin to see where it's whites only places. You'll see where Black people were being ripped off nonstop financially, being robbed of their actual wages they were supposed to get. And on top of passing policies, they allowed violence to run crazy. Like, the Irish police were targeting Black people in Black neighborhoods in Tennessee. Like, in one of the blackest cities in Tennessee, I believe it was Nashville. It was just so much terror. But I cannot stress to you, like, they use literal policy the same way they do today. So some of the bigger cases with the backing of the Supreme Court were the U.S. versus Reese in 1876, the KKK Act of 1871, the Civil Rights Act, the Civil Rights Case of 1883. Even a U.S. Senator of Mississippi at the 1890 Constitutional Convention said, the purpose of the convention was to eliminate N-words. Not the ignorant, but N-words, end quote. Like, they were just all out with it. Some of these cases go into detail about how the Supreme Court would back and justify the hangings of Black people, especially Black politicians. Like, whenever you would read about Black politicians making a really big impact, they would actually try to hang them or murder them or rape them. Like, it's a big thing. Now, y'all, I want y'all to hear me good. When all of this was happening, they decided that they didn't want to be painted as these racist people. So they started changing the narrative. Insert films like Birth of a Nation that was shown at the Capitol to paint Black men as these savages who were here to rape white women. There was also The Lost Cause, which painted slavery like it was justified, saying that they were creating slavery of Africans to tame savages to make them better at Christian labor. Like, they lied on Jesus. If you are confused about The Lost Cause, think about the 1776 report that Trump tried to release on Martin Luther King Day in 2021. Same thing. Y'all, I need y'all to understand how much our ancestors have overcome. We have come such a long way, but we have so far to go. Voter suppression was big back then, and it was even bigger this election. I know this is a lot to take in 10 minutes, but this is the first episode of the season. Now, I just want to give a little bit of information. I want y'all to go ahead and check out this Black History book by Black History 365. It is involving, Unit 4 talks about the Reconstruction era. Also, I utilize Henry Louis Gates' documentary, as well as The Stony Road, which talks about the Reconstruction era. And it's really good. It's on Amazon Prime or YouTube right now. Lastly, I want to shout out the Black-owned brands that I use in this video. As you can see, the Wahala palette from Juvia's Place, the Warrior 2 palette from Juvia's Place, the Crayon Case, Watch Me Blush, and another small Black-owned brand. It's called Sugar Bee. I use these lippies. Foundation and everything comes from Juvia's Place too. I am not getting paid for any of these products that I'm showing you. I just wanted to let you know that you should also support them because it's Black owned and we should support our own community. We've been through enough. Be sure to follow me because in about 2 weeks, I'll be releasing episode 2 of the Reconstruction era, and I'd love to get your feedback on it. Talk to you soon. Thanks for watching Face Facts Friday here with Colorful Story.